Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. This is your Sensei Al Bob, and it's December 3rd, I think. And how you doing? So here's my mask. I'm all masked up, uh, and you can wear this like this, or like this, or I can even be double masked. And this is my fashion statement. And I got these. I don't know what you call these things, but they're sold in the women's department at Walmart's, and they come two to a package. And they used to be $2, $1. And then they were on sale for 50 cents for two and 25 cents each. And I bought 10 of them, right? So I've had, 20 of these things for the last, year and a half. And this has been and this is a great mask because there's nothing on the side. There's no way that, right? And I can't, like, Anthony, said, you're double mask, So I can even double mask. Or it's quite a fancy, nice little ascot, And that's what you do, kids. You have fun with it, Because if you're not having fun, you shouldn't do it. And don't believe a word I say, This show is not for the infantile at night, this, not for, childrenish kind of people. It's someone who has an open mind, an open heart, and an intellect, and those three things were never defined by age, So, but again, infantile minds shouldn't be watching the show. And remember, it's all in good fun, right? So here we are, 2 minutes and 16 seconds. And, I'm still writing my novels because I enjoy doing it. It's like, how do I pay my, well, the one thing about paying your bills is don't spend money you don't have. I don't, right? I stay put, the last 2 years, I pretty much, I live out in the middle of beautiful, deep green, and it's all good, it's all good. It's all good. And let's see, what have we been looking at? I just realized that the internet brings me every kind of news you could ever friggin' imagine, and don't believe anything I say. Okay. But how are you do? There we go. I mean, this is pretty amazing.
Americans age 65 and up who are no longer able to work may qualify to get.
Local 4 News starts now with a breaking news alert.
We have been following breaking news all day from Oakland County. The attorney for James and Jennifer Crumbley, the parents of the defendant in the school shooting, now says they did not flee and instead left town for their own safety. Good to have you with us for Local 4 News at 5. A statewide be on the lookout alert was issued for the Crumbleys at 3 o'clock this afternoon. The sheriff went on network cable television saying the Crumbleys were nowhere to be found.
Crumbleys.
Now their attorney says they are returning to the area to be arraigned on 4 counts of involuntary manslaughter.
Oops.
Police are now facing 4 counts of involuntary manslaughter, a major decision made by the Oakland County prosecutor today that was announced just a...
So let's get to Chris Cuomo first. Let's get to that story first. So you remember Chris Cuomo got in trouble because his brother, the governor, Andrew Cuomo, was getting in hot water over sexual harassment charges. And so he decided to help his brother. He took part in strategy calls advising his brother, the New York governor, on how to respond to sexual harassment. First of all, I just want to say I think it's terrible that they call him, that the internet trolls call Chris Cuomo Fredo. If anything, he's more of a Luigi, right? Who backs up his brother, Super Mario, while he harasses the princess.
Yeah.
And we are live. This is Dark Journalists. It's great to be here with everyone. Of course, I'm joined by the lovely Olivia.
Hi, everybody.
And we have a very special guest tonight, and that is Dr. Joseph P. Farrell. Joseph, how are you?
I'm good, Daniel. Trust in the plan.
Where we go one, we go Fauci, right?
Yeah, we go Fauci.
I forgot my Fauci goggles.
I forgot my nose bag, too. So.
Unbelievable. Joseph, I have to say, we have so many things to get into tonight. Off the top, I want to say you have a new book out, which is called The Tower of Babel Moment. That book, you use a large format on that book.
That's because Lulu messed up their website as only Bill Gates can mess up a website. And I tried to get this thing into a trade paperback format. And it just wouldn't do it. I just finally gave up and said, oh, the heck with it. So it came out in this big kind of coffee table format. People actually liked it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So, it looks like what you will.
Whoops. Hit the wrong button there. That's Joseph P. Farrell and good old dark journalism. And
There it is.
And you had just done the series of McCarthy books.
Right.
And those were very heavy duty, and they exposed a lot. And even Project Blue Book came up in there, as we know, which I think off the charts. And those books are just starting to sink in with how powerful they are. This book, it's interesting to me because this phrase, you used it before. I've actually seen you do lectures on the Tower of Babel moment. What is the significance of that?
Well, that phrase actually is not mine. It comes from Leonard Bernstein's Harvard Norton Poetry Lectures in 1973 called The Unanswered Question. And they're a series, the lectures are in 6 parts. You can go on YouTube and watch them, although I recommend people buy the DVDs and have them because I watch them at least once a year because they're so thought-provoking. But he uses that phrase in the first lecture, and the first time I heard it, it just stuck. And I tell people about that in that Tower of Babel book, that it's actually his phrase. And it's so perfect for describing what I think may have been going on in people's heads, back in the post-war period, that they were worried about precisely another such event happening. So I've kind of picked it up and used it constantly.
That's fascinating. And they would be looking at this kind of like other technology zooming around and figuring out that we weren't alone.
Right.
And looking at it and saying, harkening back to this story, you've pointed out the Tower of Babel moment literally and kind of esoterically when you look back. But it's a strange story in any case.
Oh, it's a very strange story. I mean, it's odd just from the biblical point of view, because in the Bible, every time that you have an intervention by God in human affairs, usually the story gives you some sort of moral reason for the intervention. The Tower of Babel is unique in that sense because there's no reason given for the intervention, except if you read the story, it says if they finish this thing, they'll be able to do whatever they imagine to do. They won't be restrained from doing it.
Yes.
And that's the reason for the intervention. It's like, okay.
And that is, Shakespeare's story about what's his name? The guy was king and really smart, and they put him on an island, and he invents genetic engineering so he can have a friend, Enkidu. I forgot the name of that play. Anyway, same as it ever was, gang. Things never really seem to change. We are constantly, again, Shakespeare, going back to Shakespeare's to Macbeth, after he's killed everyone and he's sitting in the throne room on the throne and his best friends, oh, we won. Oh, it's so great. Oh, we were in charge. We now can do whatever we want. And he looks, he says, so why are you so glum, buddy? And, he's always glum. He's never really happy kind of guy, not like your Sensei Al Bob. And he goes, what are you worrying about? He goes, it's what? And he goes, it's tomorrow. So what about tomorrow? He goes, it's not about just tomorrow, but it's tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow. And pretty much that's where we're stuck. We're stuck in the Tomorrowland, right? And let's see. We'll try this one. Let's see. You're here. Okay, we'll go for that. I'm going to read you from one of my novels. And wherever it comes up is where I'm going to read it from. And I've been working on 4 novels this last year and a half. And there's Ear Hair, Legacy, Legend, and Work in Progress. X-rated Ear Hair. Okay, I read you the first, 9 pages or so. The powers of, they didn't like it. So I'm going to go to a less provocative part of the novel. And we will read a little bit of that until a crowd shows up. Do. Wake up. Love is God. God's love for its creations is all our relations' birthright. Our faith in God's love is love's work in progress. One love's enterprise, great illuminated ones like all Nazareans, are masters of alchemy's equality, or alchemy's quality, operating within an energy framework of love's conscious and I don't have the teeth, adhesion, like sticking together, and magnetism that is this very principle of love's co-creation, transfer of transformational energy. That is love, is science of alchemy. For without love, it is impossible to create matter. It is love's law that without love, nothing cannot create something except empty illusions of covetous, egocentric, non-existent, mercurial reality that is experienced as hell on earth. Sin does not come to the door of love's practitioners, for their motives, purpose, and methods are pure, and their acts are also just as in service to love's enterprise. And that's the words of love's unheard voice. And so God's hell's enterprise on earth, achieving a momentary coveted outcome by fixing the data to fit desired parameters, does not manifest a positive completion of the enterprise. But if the sought after outcome is not failure, then one inevitability needs to use the lens of shamanic, psychosocial, cultural, forensic, anthropologic alchemy to acquire love's fortune's fate. The mind of love is synonymous with the adept's mind in co-creation. This is characterized by alchemical attunement, specifically directed to a higher intelligence of the adept to create AOR's whip's unconditional love. And that's why we meditate. That's why we pray. That's why we, conscious intent I am. Conscious intent I am. Conscious awareness I am. Conscious awareness I am. If you are consciously aware of everything around you and what you're doing and what you're thinking, you will do your best. It's when you are just, you let things annoy you. You let the little things bother you. Oh, I wanted to do this. How am I going to pay my bills? Oh, I want my children. Oh, I want this. I want that. Oh, my parents. I hate my parents. Oh, and when I was, I'm 50 years old now, but when I was 10, the gym teacher made fun of me. If that's what's going on in your mind, you're not going to be a happy chappy. You have to realize that your life is not about you. It's about the we in me, And what makes me happy is that every day and every way I take the piece of the earth and I make it stronger. I do my best to do that. Now, I'm not perfect. I'm a moron 40% of the day, right? And that's because I'm not being consciously aware or conscious, intent. I'm just kind of blah, 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 blah out there. But 60% of the day, I am. And so I am fulfilling my path of doing my best. And in my good days, I'm doing my best 89% of the time, right? And, 9% of the time, I'm not all moron. I'm the variant, because we're not all anything. We're not perfect, but we can be our best. And that's what we should be shooting for, right? One day, Peter was driving his Harley. Oh, no, we're not going to do that. People got upset about that. Okay, what are we're going to read? Let's see. To be awake is to transform. On death's door. So I wrote that in 7/29/2015 at the Big Lick on death's door. It is not enough for humanity in the first person to come to drink when the invitation from love's higher source has gone forth. The adept must transform alchemically their ego into a new skin of service to retain the new wine of love's infinite transformative purpose. I want you guys to think of that, right? And I want to hear from you on the chat tonight about that question, right? A traveler was blinded by the illumination of Buddha. As Buddha stood in quiet contemplation, the traveler asked Buddha, "Are you God, man?" Buddha replied, "No." The traveler then inquired, "So what are you?" And Buddha replied, "I am awake." To truly be awake, one must live life in service to love, in reverence with the great law of creation's love of co-creation. Our Creator's love responds equally to the call of faith from all its creations that co-creation has fashioned in one so wonderfully and so purely in the supreme hope of absolute cosmic freedom for all. The sacred science of shamanic psychosocial forensic anthropologic alchemy. This is spiritual alchemy, and wise are they who first master it in themselves before attempting to govern the elements in others or in nature, for thus is karma's justified by the wisdom and rendered in balance with the light, the dark, and chaos of all that is love's co-creation. Again, brought to us from Love's Unheard Voice. Wake up. Love is God. God's love for its creation is all our relations' birthright. I mean, that is what we're put on this earth. This is a planet. People, there's no free lunch. Well, there is. This is an abundant world. The fact that, 9 white men control about 80% of the world's everything. Do you think that, what do you think God thinks about that one? Good old Mr. Rockefeller said that his, control of 80% of the world's wealth at his time at the turn of the century was ordained by God. He was a white male Christian. And that's why he was, the richest guy on the planet. And God made it so. You really think so? Mm-hmm. Great illuminated ones, like all Nazarenes. Now, what is that? So they used to, in the Bible, in the New Testament, and especially after Jesus turned 30, they called him the Nazarene. Like when he was on trial, he was a Nazarene. Well, that wasn't like the name of a cul-de-sac, That was what he was, an enlightened one, right? Great illuminated ones are like all Nazareans, are masters of alchemy's quality, operating within an energy framework of love's cohesion and adhesion and magnetism. This very principle of love's co-creation, transfer of transformational energy. That is, love is the science of alchemy, for without love, it is impossible to create matter. It is love's law that without love, nothing can not create something, except empty illusion of the covetous, egocentric, non-existent, mercantile reality that is ego. That is experienced as hell on earth. So, let's see. Let us go back to our live stream. There I am. So, how many? Still no one's watching, but people watch this later on, so that's why I did that. So that's kind of what I want to talk about. And the antecedent is what everyone else is talking about, what's on the news, Whoops. Mm-hmm. Oh, here's a good one. Aliens are coming.
If you want to know why you're so tired so often, look at this banana. It's fresh, brightly colored. Looks great, right?
No.
Well, I hope you're all going to enjoy the next 90 minutes. I think what we're going to do is Ben and I will have a chat about the book for about half that time, and then we'll open it up to all of you to quiz him about it. The book is officially out today.
Oh, very exciting.
Although I did see it in foils at Waterloo Station earlier this week, and I assumed it had been out earlier, but apparently
there has been a big black market for this book.
Well, I'm not surprised.
We've been trying to crack down on that, but
so I don't know. So I'm assuming most of you haven't read the book yet, which is why you're all here. Good.
Has anybody read it? I mean, you've had a day. Amazing. Was that a long train journey?
5 chapters. Okay, right.
How many?
5 chapters.
5. Oh, there we go. That's pretty good. Very good. That was a train journey from Penzance. Yeah.
Oh, you should have finished the book by then. No excuse. Well, I have read it because I was sent it quite early on by the publishers because I knew we were doing this event, and I have to say it's tremendous fun. I have to, I guess, own up that I'm also editing a book on aliens, which is going to be out later this year.
Which I can't help noticing you didn't ask me to contribute to.
Yeah. I was hoping you wouldn't ask me that. I'm feeling very guilty now. Because you are now an expert on
Anything like the Earth out there, and they found this thing that was the size of Jupiter going around a star in about 4 days. I mean, it's just completely bizarre. Absolutely bizarre solar system that we found. And from then on, we kind of had the two outliers. Then we had the Earth, and we had this hot Jupiter, and of course they both, as more and more information came in, it sort of began to smooth out into some sort of recognizable curve, and we now know, there are lots of hot Jupiters, but there are plenty of solar systems like
2,000 extra solar planets, exoplanets have been discovered.
Yeah, they have been discovered since. Yeah, many of them found by this amazing Kepler Space Telescope. So the book sort of starts out really telling that story, which is how barren, with the early exploration that we made of the solar system, when we're sending our probes to Venus and to Mars and then beyond to some of the giant planets, how barren everything looked, and how it looked like the Earth seemed to be the only place.
Work your way through poor people, but then you're going to work your way through the middle class. It's coming for all of us. You can't let this machine grow. And
The machine she's talking about is crony capitalism. This is Catherine Austin Fitts.
And we are live. This is Dark Journalists. This is a very special live stream. And as you can see, I'm joined by the former Assistant HUD Secretary, Catherine Austin Fitts. How are you, Catherine?
fine. Now, can I see everybody as they come in, or?
The chat is up.
Because the parasite has to keep eating. Right? It has to keep feeding. And so you're going to work your way through poor people, but then you're going to work your way through the middle class. It's coming for all of us. You can't let this machine grow. And Biden was somebody who was very instrumental. Now, my number one question at the time, I wrote an article called William Diefenderfer and the Economic Hitman of Student Loans, because one of my former board members was instrumental in stripping away the consumer protections of and making re-engineering the student loan model so you could make more money from kids defaulting and failing than from them paying back their loans. So they engineered the failure of successive generations. Right. And what I had to say to somebody like Biden or Bill Diefenderfer is, why would you make money destroying the very system that gave you a leg up and gave you a chance and gave you a future? Why would you destroy our future by engineering the next generations to fail? Why would you destroy the American dream by rounding up innocent kids in poor neighborhoods and stuffing them into private prison camps where they can work for corporations for 10 cents on the dollar, 10 cents an hour? You know, why would you do that? I don't know why they would do that. I don't know.
I'll tell you why. Because they make money. You know, yes, it's probably going to destroy everything as we know it, but they don't care, because right now they're making money. And right now, more corporate CEOs have quit. In the last since JoJo was elected, more have quit their jobs, retired, taken their golden parachutes and split. And more corporate board folk and rich people have sold their stock in a quiet way in the last, since JoJo became president. And that really includes like guys like Mr. Musk and Mr. Amazon and Mr. Microsoft and Larry Facebook, and all of those clowns were just poster boys. They didn't invent squat. You know, they were just put there to look good, right? And they have all, jumped ship, and and Mr. Musk wants to take his holiday spaceship to Mars, and, we have been out. There is another brother, Richard Dolan, who has his own little podcast and let's see if we can find Richie. And he is all about, he coined the phrase breakaway civilization, right? And Joseph Campbell does an excellent job. A guy with a hat who is laughing. He does an excellent job talking about, let's see, about okay, this is a good one.
Door News depends upon PayPal contributions to
My tea, me
survive.
too, right.
How weird are things? It is eclipse season, so today is gonna be really weird. Give them warm.
I love Bitcoin.
Anyway, why should I give thanks on Thanksgiving? What have I got to be thankful for? This time I'm gonna kick that football clear to the moon!
After analyzing the data, the results are in. At least 10 people are dead.
And he said it's supposed to be fun. Turn 21.
New alert. Mark Zuckerberg offers you his Sweet Baby Ray's barbecue sauce. Nod your Metaverse licensed headset to accept. Shake your Metaverse licensed headset to decline. Head shake detected.
I think I'm losing control of the whole world. Now what's wrong?
Young man, you sound just like a red. As we peer into the future, the signposts become visible, even legible. We know we are somewhere in the middle of a period of unprecedented economic change.
I love Bitcoin.
There's no doubt about it. Those fellows know what they're talking about. It makes sense. It's fun, Tom. Big business ran America right into an orgy of profiteering. It's a fact that 4 out of every 5 American homes cannot accommodate the electrical wonders of today. Why? Because most homes are not adequately wired for modern appliances.
In the Civil War, we had no effective controls, and prices continued upward until the end of the war.
But if you think about it, AI is actually the fastest path to communism.
The middle-income consumer. You may have met this character in Fortune's now famous series on the...
Yep, in the Fortunes now. Blah, 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 blah. Oh, who's here? Eddie. Hey, buddy. You're the first online, and now you're gone. Well, hope you come back. It's now, look, 33 minutes and 33 seconds. I'm just waiting for a crowd. I read from my novel about the concept of love, and I wanted to know what you thought. Ed, what do you think? What's love? What's reality? What are we doing here? And what are we expecting for that near future? Let's see. I did a afternoon show and talked about the things I wanted to talk about tonight. And I told everyone that I was going to be on, online on the show, sometime between 7 and 8. And I think I got on here around 7:30-ish. So it's now about, what time is it now? 8:19. Okay. So, I don't expect anything because I'm just here to serve, I'm here to humbly and graciously serve love's co-creation. That's it. That's all I'm here to do. So I don't have any built-in expectations. I don't believe in anything. I don't disbelieve in anything. I just have faith and love, right? So, how about you guys? Let's hear something from the audience. Oh, there's one person. So that one person, what do you think? Oh, what do you want out of life? What makes you happy? Why are you here? And what are you? Oh, tell me what you are. Oh, I've been wearing this brace on my foot. My orthopedic gave it to me. And see what I mean? It's black, and it's got everything's held together by Velcro, and I can't even see where it starts. Like I can't figure out. Okay, there's one. Okay, got one. There's another one. Oh, there's another one. Oh, and there's another one over here. And so that's 2. There's 3. And I still can't get it off my leg. See if I could see it. I might be able to get it off my foot. Okay, well, those guys are undone. Where do these guys go to? Over here. So this is the problem with this. See, it's black. I can't see anything about it. Plus, I'm a little blind. And it's hurting my leg. I can't get it freaking off. Oh, we got a flashlight. Let's see if that helps. I heard that Velcro was invented by aliens to make our life simple. And this is why I don't wear this thing. Okay. Finally. Free at last. Free at last. Praise God. Free at last. Oh, man. That hurts my foot. Poor little foot. So that took off about 5 minutes. Why do they make it black? Why didn't they make it white so I could see it? What do you think? Still no one there. Let's see. Just showing you the... and I put on a few little pounds holiday cheer because instead of just eating what's in the forest like I normally do, I'm getting things from the supermarket and people are taking me out to restaurants. Let's see. But when I go back in the woods, it will come off. And I'm not, eating like I ate when I was in the corporate world. I'm probably eating, I don't know, a few hundred calories more than I do normally. But the real deal is I'm working around, but out there in the deep green, like I said, my man cave is here. My deck lodge is up here, and my spiritual temple. So from man cave to lodge, maybe 3/4 of a football field. From lodge to temple, it's a whole football field, and it's up and down mountains. A very nice manicured path. Nothing to trip me up, except when it rains and the grass gets slippery. I'm slipped. I've hydroplaned down the hill a few times. So that's the physical thing, that I deal with. So I went to all my doctors in the last 2 weeks, all my fancy schmancy doctors, and they'll say, "Yeah, you're doing okay. You're still totally messed up, but you're at least alive, and everything is, you have homeostasis. They form, a level of balance of everything. Nothing's going up and down." So let's see. The next thing I'm going to go do, I'm going to take my blood sugar, see what that is. Oh, wow. See, that's the thing. Everything hurts. When you have arthritis and you have aplastic anemia and you have neuropathy and you have Charcot legs, everything hurts. But the upside of everything hurting, it enables me to practice conscious intent. So all I do is think homeostasis, think everything is in balance, and I hurt a lot less than I did 6 years ago when I weighed 240 pounds more than I do now, which is a good thing. So here I'm sticking myself, put the little test strip in the meter. Blood comes up. It's kind of interesting how blood comes up. Let's see, what is... for some reason, that strip wasn't good. Well, my last strip, I'll have to go buy some more. And this is a good point to reference. Hey, you want to help? This is my last, strip. Ooh, 238. That's not good. Normally, my blood sugar is around 90 to 140. So this is not good. So, okay. I have to go hunt up my cinnamon and my turmeric. Oh, there we go. But someone took me out to lunch today, and I had some really fancy schmancy restaurant, and I had really lots of nice food. It was probably, other than Thanksgiving last week, it's probably been my next biggest, largest meal. And like I said, I didn't have this a month ago. I probably put on 20 pounds being here and being on the BOP, and that's okay. It's putting on 100 pounds that I die, right? So I'm going to look for my cinnamon. Oh, and my turmeric. Here we go. Cinnamon. So my I haven't. When was it? I took my blood sugar Tuesday, and it was good. It was like 128, right? So now it's 243. So that's a pretty big jump. And and I haven't really, I've eaten a little more, and I haven't really been taking cinnamon every day like I should. I've been taking my other COVID kind of vitamins, my zinc and my vitamin C and so I have to get back on the regimen. And it'll, that's the thing. It'll go back. Because I was doing pretty good up until Tuesday. And so I have no money to buy my supplements, to buy my test strips. I just used my last test strip. So if you could put something in the old PayPal, that would be really generous. And if you want to talk to me, get a hold of me at the dudeawake42@gmail. And when you go to PayPal, they'll ask for the email address to use, and that's the dudeawake42@gmail. So, now most people who have diabetes, they have a real issue with it, and so I don't take metformin, and I don't take insulin. I don't take, because I can't afford any of those things. I do take cinnamon and cumin and tarragon and a few other herbs, but I haven't had the money to buy those either, so I haven't been taking them. But I do have enough to get back on the regiment, and that's kind of how there's certain things I do relatively normally, especially if I have enough of it, like vitamin C. Vitamin C is pretty cheap. You can buy a lot of it for not that much money. And zinc, too, is also that cheap. And QOC3 or whatever that shit is, and D3, these are all relatively cheap. And when I do have, an extra $20, I will buy, a month or two's worth of those things, right? Now, the cinnamon also is cheap, but I haven't had money, really, to buy it because I'm on the BOP. So I've spent that $20 that I would buy those things, on gasoline and a few other things. Had to fix the car and a few other things. And so that's the issue. So come on, guys. Go to PayPal, the dudeawake42@gmail. Come on, send me some cash. Because that will keep me alive, And if you want to hear more stories, I will be be able to do it. Otherwise, not so much, So, but it's, I have definitely, I'm in my 70s and, I've seen a lot of people die, and I have a lot of good friends die young, die of ODs, die of AIDS, die of, my second wife died of a heart attack. I've seen a lot of people I love die, car crashes. And when I was at EMT, I've seen really, everyone in the house I worked in, a firehouse, were pretty much adrenaline junkies. I quit after 2.5 years because I joined because it was right across the street from me, right? And one day I see all these pretty girls going into this building, and I go in there and I go, "Girls, what's up? What is it?" And I notice a fire truck. "Oh, look, it's a fire truck." And they go, yeah, we need volunteers. Where do you live? I said, "Across the street." And the captain goes, "We really need you." I said, "What do you mean?" "Well, you live across the street. You're there at night, and when a call comes in, you just can walk." And I had to drive here and get And so then they were really sweet on me, and because there were 18 women in that firehouse and 6 guys, and 2 of them in that event, I was in my 30s, and there were 2 guys. One was 40, the other guy was 62, and then there were 2 young men who were in their 18. And back in those days, New York State, if you were a teenager in high school and you were part of a volunteer fire department, you could get free college for that, right? And they got rid of that. And now, like all around the Deep Green, all the volunteer fire houses have gone defunct, because there are no more people who used to give them $20 a week to make sure that the ambulance was there and the fire truck was there. Well, they didn't have that anymore. And then all the homeless folk died. And then the rich people came in and expected everything to be paid for by the state, not volunteer, right? And so that is where our world is kind of going, and it's going there fast, which is good, because it's not going to be, the thing is, it's not going to go out like the Christians think, the big 4 horsemen, blah, 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 blah. No, it's going to be this. And it's, we've already experienced it, since 9/11. That is the way we have been, remember that 1980s, do, whack that whip, do, crack that whip, Devo, de-evolutionary, That's where we're going, kids. So I've died so many times that I'm not really scared of death. And I've had my life review 3 times. And it's always been good, because I'm doing my best. I'm doing my best. Not trying to do, not saying, "Oh, boo-hoo, Jesus." No, I don't blame anybody. I don't blame God. I don't blame Jesus. I just do my best, right? And my service is to all my relations, the we and be. My life is not about me, right? It's about everyone, ascending, doing their best. Well, right now, pretty much not many. I mean, there are a lot of people doing their best, because if they weren't, boy, the shit would really hit the fan, right? Big time. But because, we're kind of doing it, crack that whip, do. So, being a volunteer fireman. So our house was, we were in Verna, and Verna was this little town. It's part of Ithaca, New York, but it was, a farm town just outside of the metropolis of Ithaca. And right there was where I think it was 91 and another interstate. And instead of having a clover leaf, the 2 interstates just did that. And in Charlotte, they have that too. I think it's 77 or 70 something and something else. And it just does this. So if that, they have big signs getting up there saying, in 5 miles, and they have the big X, interstate this way and interstate that way. But if you're not really paying attention and you're in all the way in one lane and you got to go that way, or you got to go that way and you're in that lane, you're like, oh my God, and you do this. And little cars end up driving in front of gigantic tractor trailers that don't even see them. And so in this firehouse, we went to 3 of those a week, right? In the 2.5 years, we went to 1. We trained, we practiced fires, and putting out fires out in the country is pretty difficult because they don't have hydrants. So you have to have these, it's called ponding. You'll have to have a tanker truck. You have to have a pump truck and a tanker truck. And a tanker truck shows up at a fire with about 1,500 gallons, which, that's a lot of water. But it's, if it's a big fire and it's burning hard, it's going to need more. So they have these big, pools that we erect, and then we find the nearest pond and we pump water into the pump truck, which carries 500 gallons. And if it's close enough, we have about 3,000 feet of 4-inch pipe that we roll out, and we put the pump truck in the middle and, put, 1,000 foot into the stream of the pond over there, and then put it into the temporary pond near the pump truck, tanker truck, and that's how you do it. So we would practice that a lot. So we could put out a fire, but we only had one fire, and it was in a chicken farm that had 8 million chickens. And what they do is they turn the chicken poop into fertilizer and into methane gas. And then they take that methane gas and burn it to keep chickens warm. And we kind of ran up on this. We, got the call. It's a fire. We're going up this big hill towards this gigantic chicken farm. And we're about a quarter mile from being there. And we're all psyched it's going to be. And it's a big fire. And it explodes. The big, gigantic methane tank that was like the size of a school bus exploded and put out the fire. When we got there, chunks of the buildings were falling. We stayed in our truck. I mean, we didn't drive right up there. We saw the crap falling down. But, we put out whatever was left of the fire with with 1 2-inch line and a bunch of hand pumps, And so, but if we had pulled up there 5 minutes earlier, we would have been dead, right? So let's see. I could just give you, so I was the guy who drove the big fire truck, right? And so I had to get trained. So I had to go up to fire truck training that the state had. And I took that course. And then I was there, and it was far enough that I couldn't commute. I was staying in a motel, taking this course for 2 days, and then taking the, technical training for another 3 days, and then took the test. And while I was there, they said, well, would you like to be a first responder? Because we're also giving that. And would you like to be a, MTech, emergency room tech? And that is, it's really good, especially if your house deals with lots of really serious car crashes, to have your first responder to be the MTech, because they're the guys who can put in lines, who can do tracheotomies, who can do a lot of things that are almost, they're surgical procedures. And if you've got somebody in your team who can do that, you up the chances of them surviving by 60%. So just by me taking that course and being certified, we probably saved 2.5 years, 3 crashes a week, 52, it's 100, and that's 200 times 3. So that's 900 serious car crashes, right? And all of them, the people, didn't walk out. None of those 900 car crashes did any of those, motorists or passengers get out without a scratch. There wasn't a single time that someone walked out without a scratch or a black and blue mark or anything. I mean, there were people who, we got them out and they didn't have to go to the hospital, but they were still pretty messed up. They had black and blue scars, scrapes, stuff like that. But pretty much, things like the ribs sticking out of the side of people, things like the person, they right into a concrete abutment, doing 90. So, they're doing 90 and all of a sudden they're not. So what the engine ends up in their lap and the steering wheel goes through their chest. That we probably had to deal with 40 of those. And when we got there, 36 of them were still alive and screaming. And you know how hard it is to get someone out of a car where the car is crushed and you can't get at them. You have to chop it apart with the jaws of life or a torch. And the smell of gas is everywhere. The place is going to blow up at any second, but you got maybe 15 minutes to get them out of there before the car bursts into flame or they die. I probably had to deal with 50 of those, right? And 8 of them were dead when we arrived, so we didn't have to worry about it. But the rest, we had to either, and so a number of people, we had to chop the steering column and leave it in them so they wouldn't bleed out. And I still have dreams about that. And the girls were, they were all military folks, so they saw even worse stuff in, the Gulf War, right? Pretty much all the girls were trained in the Army to be firemen, and they saw really bad things in their stay. And so they were like adrenaline junkies. They were war junkies. And so when we would get back, we'd have these amazing orgies, because their adrenaline was just pumping. And I was the 2 old guys, I was 30 something. And then there were the 2 teenage boys, and then the 2 old guys over 50. One's 56, and the other was like 62. Well, they couldn't get it up. I mean, they would just go home, or go to sleep. But the rest of the girls needed servicing. So that's another reason I quit. And 2 of those girls off themselves, and we had to respond to their, eating their gun. So, I've seen a lot of that, and most people haven't. Most people have no idea what to do. I want to kill myself. Well, first off, so the other thing we responded to, so car crashes was the number one thing we responded to. Second thing, there was a trailer, a mobile home park up on the hill, which was, the retirement home. They didn't have a nice little retirement place that was like a country club. The retirement home they had for the poor people anyway was this, really ratty mobile home park. And they didn't own that. They paid the old folks home place, and you get your meal delivered to you in a styrofoam thing. It's usually, a bologna sandwich that was turning green. So, most of those folks were not happy. And we would probably respond to 4 or 5 suicides in that park a month, right? And most of those guys were, vets. So they all had guns, and they all ate their 45. So, showing up and finding the top of someone's head blown off, not the best sight. And what was truly interesting was that out of those 4 or 5 guys who would blow their top of their head off each month, at least 2 were still alive. I mean, it didn't kill them. It just made them crazy. We had to restrain them. And the other really interesting thing, so out of the 4 or so that were dead and were smelling, meaning no one noticed them until the smell, we got there and their ghosts were sitting on the couch. And most of the people could not handle that because these guys, you could see them, they were there. They were freaking out because they were looking at their dead self, but they thought they were still alive. So my captain and I and this highway patrol guy, this black guy who really was touched, this guy could see everything paranormal. So we were the 3 people, the ME would never go in there if that shit was going on. And the 3 of us, my captain, me, and the black highway patrol sergeant. We were the three that would, pull the body out for the ME. And a number of times, the owner of the thing just set he said, "You guys stay here. I'm going to set it on fire." So, how many of you had any experiences like that? How about you, Ed? You had any experiences like that? Have any of you know what it's like? Have any of you been in war? You're in a foxhole and the mortars start raining down on you, and every one of your buddies, after the things quiet down and clear up and you're not being attacked anymore, you get out of your foxhole, and everyone in your platoon is gone, and they were all in their foxhole, and each one got a mortar straight in their foxhole, and they were turned into mush. It was like a bowl of soup. Have many of you experienced that? Well, I haven't experienced that, but I had loads of friends who did, and I would have to deal with their PTSD because I was the closest thing they had to. I mean, it was a shrink, but I was the closest person who they would trust to, like when they were screaming and yelling and freaking out, I could calm them down and talk to them about it. Have any of you had any of those experiences? Here's a good story. Here's a happy story. So we roll up on a accident where this lady, in a soccer mom who's got 3 girls in the back, 2 girls who are, maybe somewhere between 14 and 17, and they're in a soccer team, right? And soccer mom went to the show and watched the team, and they, were going home from the game, and soccer mom had a bit too much to drink before she showed up, right? And so she was a little buzzed, and she was coming off that interstate and coming across that X, and a tractor trailer didn't see her and clipped the back of her truck and flipped it through the air. It went woo, 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 and smashed on the concrete thing that separated the 2 sides of the highway. And there was no medium, no grassy anything. It was just this concrete thing, and the van, the soccer, woo, 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 through the air and crashed on the roof and kind of got stuck there sideways. And another truck coming the other way hit it and then bounced it in front of another tractor trailer, because the tractor trailer that clipped the back just kept going, didn't stop. Because whether he didn't know it or not, but it didn't really harm his vehicle enough for him to stop, so he didn't stop. He was, had to make it to Charlotte by... Anyway, so the truck that initiated the thing wasn't there, and it didn't stop the traffic, and the guys in the back didn't see it, so when that other tractor trailer that hit it coming the other way smashed it into that, and that's what stopped the highway. And we luckily, because it stopped the traffic, and normally we would have come on this one exit, but it was backed up even like to our fire station. So we went another road the other way and came back the other way because we got the report that the highway was closed. So we got on the exit and drove on the highway where the traffic normally would be going this way, but there were no cars because it was totally stopped. We get there, right? And the tractor trailer is a gasoline tanker, and his diesel fuel is leaking out of his tanks in the diesel, right? And he can't, for some reason, shut the engine off. And the soccer mom's van is like just mushed like an accordion, right? So first we have to, a gasoline tanker. We get the guy, he's in there, he's screaming, get me out, it's gonna blow up, it's gonna blow up. And so we get him out and he runs frigging away. We thought he was hurt the way he was screaming. No, he just couldn't get out and he was freaked. So he ran, away. I mean, and we didn't have the time to go run him down, and the cops we're too busy making sure more vehicles didn't smash into the gas tanker. First thing we had to do was turn our tanker into a foamer. And so we foamed everything down as much as we could. A fireman has some really interesting tools. So what we did was and two of those girls were amazing mechanics. They could fix anything. And they just we used the jaws of life just to rip the front of the truck off, and then used the jaws of life to just, break the engine so it turned off, because we couldn't, the switch, nothing worked. So we just stuck the jaws of life in there and, and it stopped. And we disconnected the leaky diesel tank and rolled it over, and we had these really interesting bags that we could lift things. We would slide the bag in there and we could lift it. And we had other bags of different sizes, and we had these one bags that just for something like this, something explosive or volatile, we could stick it in this bag, and we could fill it up with the foam from our foamer. And even if it blew up, it would be contained by this thing, right? And you could probably use it for a bomb. But we never dealt with bombs. I mean, gasoline tanker trucks, yes. So we did that in less than 5 minutes. And I wasn't part of that. What I was part of was making sure if anyone was alive in the soccer mom's van, right? So it was really quiet, and there was a lot of blood. And so me and 3 other girls, we were in there, and the chief was with me. And there was the two teenage boys were with us, because the girls were much better at the equipment than the boys were. But this wasn't like, a bomb. So they were using the other jaws of life to rip open the side of the soccer van. And the 2 girls in the back, one girl's head was severed. And what happened was when up here and all the glass broke, and she wasn't wearing her safety belt, and so her head hit the window and kind of almost severed her head. But when that truck coming the other way smashed into it and threw it back, it like hit that side where her head was hanging out, and so her head was like 100 yards down in the highway that had been run over a few times. But she was headless, and her blood was just, like a water fountain, was everywhere. And the other sister, her mother, like I said, the engine ended up in the driver's compartment in the mother's lap, and the steering column had gone through the mother, and the wheel took off the top of her head. So she had no top of her head. The steering column was through her chest, and the whole engine had like chopped her legs off and turned them into mush, and basically compressed her through the chair, pushed the chair back, and the column without the steering wheel went through the mom and went through the other daughter. So it was like a shish kebab. Mom and the other daughter were both shish kebabbed by the steering wheel column, and it was a little girl in the passenger side. And the way the engine, she didn't get hurt. Her leg got pinned between her seat and the drivetrain, right? And the engine was there, and it got burned pretty bad. And she was but that was it. Her leg was kind of broken and squished between her seat and the drivetrain, and the hot engine had burned backside of her leg, and so that leg was pretty messed up. So we had these bags that we could, just like how I was trying to get this thing off my foot, we had something very similar that we had different types, and we had ones that you could just slip over a leg and then, put compressed air into it, and it would be like a tourniquet, like a cast. If the leg was really mushed up, it would really immobilize it, right? To the point, and we had them different sizes. And we also had ones that we could, if you couldn't slip it over, you could, just like that thing, you could put it over and Velcro it and then fill it full of air, and it would. So basically, I gave her a topical in her leg, and then I gave her another kind of, not morphine, but another painkiller, right? And it started with a B. I forget what it was, but anyway, gave her that, and we had a radio that went. Cornell Medical School had the most amazing trauma center, so we had this radio and this pack that we could, not just have in the truck, but we could move it right next to somebody, and we could put sensors on their body and telemeter the information back to the doctors, and they could give us and we had a device that was it was an x-ray device. I mean, we could, put it was like a vest, and you could put it on the chest, and it would do a whole body cavity x-ray, right? And they could, and it was like a Cinecam. I don't know if you guys know what a Cinecam is. That's a moving video x-ray machine. And now that's been replaced by MRIs and CAT scans and things like that. But before those days, and the technology they have now, they had this other thing. So we had one of those, and we could telemeter that back to the emergency room. So we were really, we used to have competitions with other fire departments in other states, and we were really, top 20 of the country of dealing with this, because we dealt with it all the time. Practice makes perfect. But this was probably the worst one, because mama and daughter, shish kebabbed, sis over here, headless, and and the little one was in the passenger seat, and she was trapped, so she couldn't move. She couldn't even see her mom, right? She was stuck this way, and she couldn't really take a look. So we had, firemen are really guys who were prepared, girls too. I mean, this was a girls' fire department. We had these, they weren't sheets, they were tarps, but they were like sheets. Like, they were a tarp, and it was a sheet on this side. So when you looked at it on one way, it looked like a sheet. Looked at the other way, it was a tarp. So if we put, if I had put a sheet on mom, it would have been blood red like that, right? So, but this tarpy thing with the sheet on it, you put it over somebody, and, it was like, oh, no, it's just a sheet on. And so the kid couldn't see mom, right? And we had to really take the vehicle apart, and most people were making sure the gas tanker wouldn't blow up. So it was just 4 of us working on this. And because there was only one person alive, that little girl, I had her all checked out to make sure she wasn't going shock or any of the above. And I was right there, and I'm going, listen, your mom and your sisters are all right, but they can't talk to you, right? And we're getting them out first because they're hurt more. Your leg is kind of beat up, but I've got it, it's not hurting you anymore, right? Oh, no. So I'm going to stay here with you, and I'm going to, talk to you and hold your hand, and anything you need, I'm going to take care of you right here. You can trust me. You can depend on me. We're going to get your mom and your sisters to the hospital first, and then we're going to get you out, because it's a little more complicated. We don't want to hurt you anymore. Mom and the sis were still shish kebab. The other sis, we got her out right but first, because she no head, obviously not alive, and she wasn't really trapped. Mom and daughter, shish kebabbed, engine in mom's lap, basically crushing and severing, everything below her breasts down. it cut half her body, just smushed her body off, and everything was, to get all of that disconnected and out those guys out the car. That was it took a good 20 minutes, right? And in those 20 minutes, I had to be with this girl, holding her hand, talking to her, making sure she wasn't going into shock, and taking care of her. And I was asking her questions, what she likes, where, and it was like really bad because I said, "So where's your daddy?" "He's dead. He died in the war in Iraq." So Dad's dead. Now Mom and the sisters were gone. I said, "Do you have anybody else? Your grandma, aunt?" "No, just Mom and sis and my two sisters." I said, "Okay." And so this wasn't working out for the best day for this little girl. But I was going to do my best to make it not worse. So I didn't raise my voice. I didn't get angry. I didn't get upset. I didn't freak out. My coworkers, we had been doing this for a year. We were a team. And they're doing their job. They're focusing on what they were doing. They weren't thinking about anything or asking questions about anything. I'm just dealing with a little girl, right? And I'm there with her. It takes us 40 minutes to be able to get them out and in a place where this little girl ain't going to see them. And then we take our time getting her out because we don't want her to lose her leg, right? And, the doctors in the hospital, I did my best to x-ray that and telemeter it to them and what they could tell about all the other instruments that on her. And they said, "Well, she's not in, she's not going to die. She's not that, but, their blood pressure, this, that, and the other thing, and the x-ray of the leg, if you can really get that out with that immobilizing device on it and not move it too much and get her here within, an hour and 10 minutes, we're sure she'll be okay." So, that was our real, but we had to get Mom, the shish kebab Mom and sis and the headless sis out of there before we could get the little girl out. And I had to be with her for the first 40 minutes. And we only had an hour and 15 minutes. After every minute after that, the chance of her losing her leg went up, right? So anyway, I just stayed and was calm and talked about everything other and still taking care of her medical needs. And so I got her out of there, right? And we got her to the hospital. And we got her, and we sedated her. Once we got her out onto a gurney and into the bus to go to the hospital, we sedated her. That's what the doctor said. You got to keep her awake until you get her in the bus and she's only 5 minutes out, sedate her, right? And so that's what we did. And I rode with her the whole way, got her in the bus, held her hand, and I had an IV drip. And I said, "Okay, now I'm going to put you to sleep. And when you wake up, everything will be fine. It'll be, you won't have suffered any of the, us fixing your leg." And she said, "Okay." And by that time, she goes, "I really trust you. I really love you. You're like an angel." She kept saying, "You're like an angel." And I was all dressed in yellow. I don't know how many angels are yellow, but anyway, she goes, "You're my angel." And she kept saying that. And even now, it's hard not to cry because I saw the shish kebab Mom and the headless daughter and this little girl. And I couldn't show my emotions to this little girl. So I'm in the bus. I'm still holding her hand. She goes, "I love you. You're my angel. It's all, And she starts saying that I'm, little tears are rolling down my cheeks. And "It's okay. It's okay. I'm okay. It's okay. And mom and sister are okay. It's all okay." And I said, that's good. That's good. And so put her out. And most of that was because then I just lost it and cried and cried and cried. And I cried the whole time, the 5 minutes to get her there, still making sure everything was fine. But I was, bawling. And by the time we got there, I had cried myself out. And I did it on purpose because I knew once I got to the hospital, I'm like the MTech guy. So I got to go with her into the emergency room and maybe even into the operating room to be able to tell the emergency doctor and the operating doctor and anesthesiologist and everybody what went on with this girl. So there'd be no fuck ups, right? And I was and that's pretty much what I did. Stayed there all the way, for a day. Once she went in the operating room, I stayed there because she had nobody. No grandma, no aunts, nobody to call. And when she came out of it, and before I put her out, I said, this is a great opportunity. And she said, what do you mean opportunity? I said, well, you have experienced something that most people don't. And you can either look at it as it is a terrible thing, and from this point on, your life's going to suck. Or you can see that you survived, and from this point, everything's going to get better. And and you'll have this, this point of reference in your life. And she said, well, I thought that was when my daddy died. I said, well, it is, but the other amazing thing, this thing that I'm going to put you to sleep with is a magic thing. And when you go to sleep, you're going to be able to see your daddy. And the whole time that you're asleep, getting your leg fixed, you're going to be with your daddy. And not only that, your mommy and your sisters will be there too. I mean, you'll be able to see it. And you will be happy, and you will come out of this, and it will be a good point to make things better and better. From this point on, it's just going to get better and better. And she, as she drifted off, she said, I can see my daddy. I haven't seen, oh, I'm so happy. She's asleep. And my mommy's out, she's asleep. And my sister's asleep, right? Anyway, so we get him there, I'm emergency room. We, do the triage of the whole thing, get the thing, the surgeon comes down, the anesthesiologist, all the other doctors, they take her in and scan her every which way while she's still out, and they're working on her the whole time, and they get their plan together, and I take her all the way through that, right into the operating room, and told the doctor had everything written down, and had telemetered everything to them, and so it was as good as they could get. And this is a really amazing hospital. So so when she woke up, her leg was in a cast from her big toe like up to her chest, and it was a high-tech, it wasn't made out of plaster. It was a high-tech cast, so chunks of it could be changed and moved around and done all kinds of things too. And she was all wired up and telemetered. And anyway, she came out of it, and I was still there, and I was holding her hand. And I asked her when we were having conversations what music she liked. And she liked... what's her name? 1980s, what's her name? Female, not grunge, but what's that? CBGBs. It was a punk. She liked punk music, and she liked this female. So I, got in the hospital when she was in recovery ICU, and she was the only one in there. It was like operating ICU, not like other kind of ICU. So, but where she was getting, and I stayed by her that whole day. I stayed with her, morning, afternoon, night, the whole thing, and once she was in there and settled in, and she was still unconscious. But they were just waiting for her to kind of wake up. I said to the nurse, so do you guys have a, boombox with a CD? Oh, yeah. And I said, do you have any of this? What was her name? I forgot Joan Jett, that's it. She liked Joan Jett. So and she says, oh yeah, we got a couple of Joan Jett CDs. And so I played Joan Jett 24, really low, not screaming, but really low, right next to her. And I went down to the flower place and got all the flowers that they were going to throw out, but they were still smelling good. And I just covered the place in flowers and got some candles and turned the fluorescent lights off and had candles and had lots of flowers. And Joan Jett was singing, right? And so, and I was just holding her hand, and she came awake, and she goes, "Oh, my angel is here." I didn't even tell her my name. She would just call me my angel. And so I said, "So how you feeling?" She goes, "Oh, I kind of, everything hurts, but it's not bad. It's not really, compared to other things, not so bad, right? And it's, you were right. I saw my daddy, and my mom was there, and my sisters were there. We had a great time, and we talked about pain." I said, "Pain?" I said, "Yeah, because my daddy, when he died, he was in a lot of pain, and he was telling me that he could feel my pain, and it was okay, and he would carry my pain, and he would always be with me." And I'm like, I'm going to cry right now. And I let her just go on and on and on and on and on. And she had no one in her life. And so I stayed there. And then, my captain came in. And she was also, she ran the Varna Volunteer Fire Department, but she also was a lieutenant in the Ithaca Fire Department. And she was a major in the military. She was still in the military in National Guard. So she went to her friends in the National Guard and found really serious, really good trauma care folk and psychologists and social workers, right? And so there was a room, like a recovery room, for people who were, it was like a motel room, right? But it was still, it was right in the hospital. So it was a hospital room and it had all the hospital stuff, but it was a motel room, right? So anyway, the girl stayed in the ICU. And then and I'm still there. And my captain comes that day and comes in and I said, "This is my captain." She goes, Your captain is a woman?" I said, "Everyone who took you out of that car, but me, everyone who took your it did everything were women. I was the only guy, and the other two guys were the two old guys were just, with flashlights flagging traffic, and the other two guys were working on, getting the engine out of Mom. And I said, and there were 15 other women who made sure that the truck that really hit you, that did the most of this damage, was a gasoline tanker, and we had to make sure it didn't blow up. And so she said, "Really?" I said, "Oh, and our truck actually has TV cameras, and one day I'll show you those pictures because it's kind of cool." She said, "Wow, I want to be just like those girls." I said, "Well, you can be. You now have a family." We still haven't told her that her mother and her sister were shish kebab by the steering column, and her mom was cut in half by the car engine that crushed her leg, and that her other sister's head was like a volleyball quarter mile down the road that had gotten run over by about 6 trucks. So we didn't tell her any of that, but she knew, because when she was unconscious with her father, and then her mother and her 2 sisters showed up, they talked about that. And so she goes, "It's okay." And I said, "It's okay?" She goes, "Yes. My father told me about my mother and my sisters, and I know they're on the other side with my dad, and they're just so happy. And they showed me I could be there anytime, And she they showed her how to go into state and be with them in, her sanctuary of her own choosing, on the garden and the Ferris wheel and all of that. And this girl was like made a shamanic, princess. She was a crone at age 8. And so, my captain's friends came in and, I stayed with her another day, and she got out of the ICU and went into the hospital room. And those 4 folks, and they were women too, and they were there and stayed with her. And one of those, the doctor, the medical doctor / shrink / trauma specialist, adopted her. And so that was towards the end. I left Ithaca when I stopped being a fireman. I was, I still, my day job was still a research analyst at Cornell, and when I quit the fire department, after that, that was it for me. After that experience, I said, girls, I have to hang up my spurs. And my captain said, yep, I understand. And but we still stayed best of friends, but I moved out of the neighborhood, got another apartment in town, and was there for another 6 months. And then I got a gig to go to Asheville and do an ethnography on the Biltmore House. And another part of my life started. But that was one of the more, I don't want to use the word sobering, but it made me more of a human being. I was pretty much a good human being to begin with, but that made me, like I told her, this was going to be a milestone. Well, it's a milestone for me at 33, right? And with the loss, and that was just, 4 years after my love of my life died in a heart attack in my arms, right? And I probably lost 20 really good friends to AIDS, right? And another 10 really good friends to overdosing on drugs. And about another 8 that died of suicide. And so when people tell, I got to kill myself, I'm like, pretty serious. No, you're not. Anyway, so that was a real moment in my life, and it changed me, and it kind of made me into the Sensei Al Bob that I am. And I just wanted to know, any of you guys, any of you 3, got any understanding of death? Because if you're not ready to die, you're not ready to live. You're already dead. If you are, kvetching about, that your soy latte wasn't the way you wanted it, and that messed with your rest of your week, you better, start to reevaluate your life. If everything is about stuff, and if everything's about you really need to start to evaluate your life, right? Because you're really missing a lot. Hey there, fish. We're dying every day. Yep. When you're born, you're dying already. And if you're not really understanding that, you're not ready to live. You can't live. You're not living. You're already dead, right? So, Fish, did you get all of that story? Or did you just show up now? Anyway, so the last night that we talked, and for like 6 hours, and I left you hanging on the edge of the Brazilian rainforest cliff of what the folks that I was the first white boy they ever saw told me, right? I went there because the Nazis wanted to send me there and see who they were and how they were going to react when the the corporate Nazis show up to obliterate their paradise, And, the Nazi basically said, see if you can get them to keep moving out of the way. We don't want to kill them because that's, he understood the karmic, what would happen. This guy was, the Nazi, the Doctore was truly, truly more than what he seemed to be. Right. And so, and that's the, hanging out with those guys, I realized you can't judge a book by its cover, right? And so when I explained how I got there and how, the Doctore was smart enough to stop me eating cheeseburgers, drinking Coke, blah, 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 put I added like 6 colonics. I need one now. And that's kind of this gut here. It's not like really fat. It's that my colon, because I'm eating food that normally I don't eat, it's not processing because I don't have any teeth. I don't, I gum everything pretty good, but still, and I have no money to buy medicines or even supplements. So, anybody wants to send some money to the, PayPal account of the Dude Awake 42 at Gmail, boy, I could use it now. So I could buy some supplements. Anyway, so I can have a bowel movement. How can we hey, let's talk about bowel movements, Can you describe my favorite bowel movement is when I have big, long snake, nice, greasy, big, long snake in the toilet bowl. When I have these bricks, that's not good because squeezing them out, not great. And when it shoots out like a fire hose, when it's just chocolate milk, not good. And that's kind of where I'm at. I haven't seen a greasy snake in at least 3 months, right? So I need my supplements. So anyway, remember, PayPal, the Dude Awake 42 at Gmail. PayPal, Dude Awake 42 at Gmail, right? Come on. So anyone want to describe their bowel movements? It's really a good thing to talk about. Very healthy, right? And so, and that's one of the problems about Americans. They're so uptight about their bowel movements and their sex. So they don't have any, Some of the best sex I ever had was in that fire department because these girls were all about it. And, I was the fittest soldier in that department. So for 2.5 years, in the 200 and something, fire runs we made, came back after a catastrophe, and we did our best. 80% of the people that we got out of cars, we got them to the hospital alive. And that hospital was so good, it saved their lives and their limbs, just like that little girl. So what was interesting is, I never went back to New York City, right? I mean, I left New York City in 88 to go to Cornell, and I left Cornell in 91. And in 2011, I went back to New York City from one of my goddaughters. When I was living in really bad neighborhoods and running a housing authority with a bunch of interesting people, and the city fighting us tooth and nail about it. And then we just kept winning in court and doing an amazing job. At a certain point, the New York City Housing Authority and a few politicians said, New York City Housing Authority has an element in it that was created during the Depression that it's supposed to do exactly what you do. And you guys have done 50 buildings, housed 500 families in 3 years. And in the 60 years that they have had their thing, they have done one building. So why don't you guys take over that entity and become, part of the housing authority and then the city, and everybody will be happy. And we did. And they said, and Al, we need you to actually work for us, to be that facilitator that you are in this thing, and to, you have actual pretty good training as conflict resolution guy. And the towers that, the housing project that was on 16th Street was just, right near our, it was in, right there in Alphabet City. And they said, we have no conflict resolution person, and we have 1,200 apartments. We have 6,000 people living there, and there's all kinds of drug gangs and everything. We really need your assistance. I said, sure. And it gave me, my wife had died right about that time, and I really needed something to distract me from my grief, from the loss of my wife. And so I did that, And my partner was the most amazing woman, right? She was one of the first, if not the first, one of the first women who passed and got an A grade at being a U.S. Army Ranger. And she was such a badass that all the guys in the Ranger school were scared of her. So they made her, instead of like putting her out in the field, they made her an instructor. And she did that for, I think, 10 years. And then they gave her early retirement because she just scared the crap out of all these Army guys, right? And so she was a way badass girl. So she was, and so she was a policeman in the New York City Housing Authority Police Department, which they don't have anymore. Now New York City police do that job. And the New York City Housing Authority was trained to deal with people, whereas the New York City, they just shoot them, right, and arrest them, and they don't really, deal with them. Anyway, so they said, so she's going to be your partner. So we were the ultimate good cop, bad cop. I mean, she just wanted to kill everyone. She had a zillion weapons on her. I walked around in my pajamas, and slippers. And anyway, so we were a really good team. And that's how I got to Cornell, because in the year and a half of doing that, I would, like, a good example. So we did that. We kind of went off and got trained a little bit more. And then we started out only taking care of a small group of just one building. But, within 4 months, we had the whole place, right? All 1,200 units, all 6,000 people, just 2 people being responsible for the security of it. And they gave me a uniform and a gun and a radio and all that shit. And I said, nope, not going to do that. I am the conflict resolution guy. I'm not a policeman. I had my little badge, a little chain, which I wore when I worked so other cops wouldn't shoot me. And I got to know everyone, so no one shot me. But I did not follow anyone's protocol because I was already didn't care. And all I cared about was the safety of my partner. So I said, listen, I'm always going to be the first one through the door. You stay in the hallway. And if I can't negotiate a peaceful resolution, you come in and take care of business. And so we were the ultimate good cop, bad cop. And after about 6 months, after the first 2 months of us just taking care of one unit, everyone kind of got to know us because I kept hanging out in the park and playing basketball. And she was really good at basketball, right? And she would just, take all her stuff off. And then when she was not wearing her vest and her this and her all her weapons, she would just be in a pair of shorts, those really tight shorts and a tight shirt. And she was very well endowed. She was a gorgeous woman, right? She was 38. She was 4 years older than I was. And she would take everything off, and she was just in a Speedo, like, tank top, spaghetti straps, and her girls and, Speedo shorts. And she was like, whoa. And she, she didn't have kicks. She had her military sneakers. and she could kick anyone's butt in basketball. So that was one of the things we did to like all the gangs. And she had her military bag, and we had a car. We actually had a car. We never drove it because we were in this one kind of thing. But if we had to go somewhere or go to court or chase somebody, or we had a car, and she could park it wherever the heck she wanted to. So she would, when we played basketball, she would drive it right up to the basketball thing and park it there and put all her uniform and everything in this army bag and put that in the trunk, right? And she, in her pocket, she had this little knife, and in the other pocket was the key to the car. That was it, right? And she could throw that knife faster than a bullet could go. And I remember one time we were playing basketball, and some stupid person came around chasing another person with a gun, and it was like no one even saw her look. She took that knife and just threw it like across the basketball court, like through the chain link fence, and got the guy in the eye. Not in the heart, not in here, but in the eye, because getting him in the eye, if she got him here, he could still shoot the person. But getting him in the eye, the guy threw the gun and just and was on the ground. And everyone was like, and it was really great because at least 400 gangbangers were watching us play basketball and saw her do that. And that was it. No one ever questioned that she was, we were never threatened, never, ever. And the way we worked, where I would go in shorts and a t-shirt and usually carrying a 6-pack and talk to people. They knew, if, I could get everyone to agree, and then she wouldn't. But if she had to come in that room, she was going to kill everybody, or at least put a knife in their eye. And we, and I remember when she did that, we had to go through all kinds of paperwork. And the captain of our crew, he was like, because everybody came, they filled out forms, took pictures, blah blah blah. It was like that song that was Alice's Restaurant. When they're talking about the photographs of the garbage. I mean, it was like that. And so my captain had all these forms and all this stuff on here, and this was a really bad guy. And by putting the knife in his eye, it stopped him from being the really terrible, murdering, bad guy. And he basically went into the hospital for his eyeball. He got into an argument, and someone slit his throat, right? And so he was no longer the big bad problem of that whole housing thing. But it started with her throwing a knife across the basketball field, through the chain link fence, down, another 40 yards into the guy's eye. It was like, so we were quite the crew. And so as time went by, and I kept doing things like this guy held his, it was really hot, and this one building had air conditioning, but then it didn't. But all the windows, you couldn't open them up, right? So these apartments were like ovens. It was one summer, this guy lost his job. He was at home. He was sweating, he's watching the game and his TV went off. He was really upset. His wife was bickering. The kids were screaming. And he went in a closet, pulled out a shotgun and stuck it in his wife's mouth and taped it to her head and taped the kids up to the point where, they were probably going to die of heat prostration because he taped over their mouth. They could barely breathe and they were sweating like pigs. It was really hot. Came over the radio, the code, and she goes, "We got to get." I said, "Wait a minute." I went into the bodega. I said to Mr. Chuchi Frito, I said, "What is your coldest?" He goes, "Well, Pabst Blue Ribbon. No one ever drinks that shit." And I got 3 or 4 6-packs, and they're right near the blowy thing, so they're like nearly frozen. I said, "Great." I'm going to take 2 of those. And you got paper bags? Oh, yeah, I got paper bags. So I wrapped them up in 2 paper bags and then put them in my little bag. And I said, okay, let's go. So we went up there, and, the SWAT teams, all those guys hadn't shown up yet. We were the first one. We got the first call. And we were supposed to go there and, phone back and say what's going on, right? So, we get there. And he, somebody of authority went to the door, and a guy, he had 2 shotguns, and he had one taped in his wife's mouth, and another one he could, shoot the kids or shoot anyone coming through the door. And he's sitting in his lazy boy, and he's, someone came to the door, and he blew the door into bits. Luckily, that guy, ran out screaming and called us, and we were the next to show up. So we showed up. And so the door isn't there anymore. It's like, half of it's still on here, but all in splinters. The rest is blown away. Half the door jamb is gone. The wall across the thing is like, but, the whole place was like that. There are bullet holes everywhere in these buildings. Anyway, so I basically go over there with this really super doopy cold beer in paper bags and in my bag. And I'm wearing shorts and a T-shirt, and he kind of knows us. Everyone knows us in this housing authority place. And I kind of knock on the door jamb, but I'm like, hey, look, no gun, no radio, no nothing, just a T-shirt, shorts, flip-flops, my little badge. And my partner is, she's got all the guns, and she's just right here, but she's not going to do anything. I'm going to come in and talk. So I kind of come in and go, boy, this place is fucking hot. And there's a kind of metal chair, really built. I mean, it's not a folding chair. It's not, this thing is, almost indestructible. It's like a school chair. And so I pick it up, look around, and there's a big window in the living room, and he's sitting in the living room. And I said, listen, I am just going to take this chair and smash this window out. Is that okay with you? I'm not going to I'm not going to hit you. I'm not just going to get a little air, and then I'm going to go over in at the end of that hall and smash that window, and we'll get a little cross breeze. What do you think? He said, yeah, there's a fan in the bedroom. I said, good. So I do that, and all the glass goes flying down, and she gets on the radio. Said, don't worry about this. It's just we're getting some air in here. And so I do that, and then I said, here, I want to have this. And he drinks the beer, and it's like, this is the coldest beer I've ever had in my life. And he drinks it. Oh, that was great. He didn't blah, 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 blah. I said, have another. Blah, 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 blah. Third one. He was super agitated when I walked through the door. But when I pulled those beers out, he relaxed a lot. The first beer, he relaxed even more. The second beer, third beer, I could talk to him, right? I said, so listen, you kind of kicked the beehive here, and, let's take the gun out of your wife's mouth. And he goes, okay. So he does. And I said, can you hand me that gun? And he goes, yes. And so I take it open. And I said, oh, there's no shells in here. It's double-barreled shotgun. And he goes, yes. And I said, well, as soon as you handed me that gun, I kind of knew that this gun wasn't going to fire. He goes, but this one does. That's what it did to that door. I said, yes, I know. So I put that one away, and I said, so, let me go over to the kitchen, get a knife, and cut your kids out of, the tape, and then have them go out to the hallway, and also send your wife. You don't want them here. They're annoying, and, let's just sit here and we'll drink beer. So he goes, yeah, good idea. So the kids go out. The wife goes out. And by that time, SWAT is in the hallway with my partner. My partner's like, I'm in charge, and the SWAT guys were scared of her. So they did. I said, so she goes, you take the kids and the wife down, put them on the bus, take them to the hospital, right? And you guys are just back up, and I want, and she sent them out. Two of you go to those fire escapes. The other you guys go down to the next floors. The other 4 of you guys go down to the lobby and start getting people out of the building, right? First, this floor below, or above the rest of the building, right? We're not going to pull a fire alarm. We're just going to take them out apartment by. So that's what she was doing. And I'm still talking to the guy and we're drinking beer. And I said, so you really wanted to watch the ball game? I said, what about a radio? I saw a radio there. And I plugged it in. I kind of, we'll go to, ABC. They have they had the game. So we're listening to it on the radio. We're drinking beer. By the time we hit the second 6-pack, I stuck in the freezer. And so we finished. And he drank all, I had one beer. He had the other 5. So then I said, so everything's calmed down, everything's good, but you look out that window, that SWAT truck is there, and my partner, and you're going to have, there's a responsibility for this, right? And now you did all the right things. You let the kids go, let the wife go, you didn't hurt anybody, this was like a call for help, right? And that's how I'm going to write it up. And not only that, I'm going to go out of here with you, right? And, we're going to finish, if you want to finish drinking the rest of those beers and get really drunk, not a problem. But if you feel good enough right now, I would say this is a good time to, the only thing I have in my pocket, my back pocket, is a pair of handcuffs, right? So I'm going to put these on, not in a painful way, but in a comfortable way. And we're going to walk you out. And I'm going to have all the SWAT team guys out of the way. My partner's the only one going to be with us. I'm going to, hold your arm, and we're going to go down together, and we're going to get into our police car, not the SWAT truck or the paddy wagon. And I'm going to take you to our police house, right? Not New York City police, you're not going to the Tombs. You're not going to any of that, right? You're going to go to ours, and we're going to keep you in our cell. That's air conditioned and nice, and you'll get good food, and I'll go get you Chinese if you want it, because, there's that place right on the corner. And I'm going to get you a lawyer, and I'm going to get you arraigned within a day. And I'm going to have you not stay in jail. I'm going to have you, on recognizance, and I will be responsible for you, right? And because I'm a court officer, I can do that. And you won't need to pay bail or go through any of that. I will be responsible for you, okay? And he goes, that's from this point on, We'll listen to the rest of the game. Maybe we'll have another beer or two. You're not that drunk, are you? And he goes, no, I'm okay. So, we listen to the rest of the game. He has another beer. I kind of, it's time to go. I've already told my partner what we're doing. She radios it down. The higher ups are like, okay, because it's not New York City Authority. It's, the Housing Authority, and they like this whole idea that it's didn't end up in a bloodbath, and it's not going to end up in a terrible situation, right? And it's going to be calm and cool, and they like the idea of having him in our house and not taking, not like mixing metaphors of the Housing Authority police and the New York City Police Department. So anyway, we do all of that, take him down there, get him Chinese food. And there is a guy who is, he's our legal guy in that house. He does all the paperwork, and his wife is a legal aid lawyer, right? So, he calls her up, and she comes down with another lawyer because she's really, high in the echelon, but she brings this other lawyer. And so that's going to be his lawyer, and we're going to go to court, and I will take responsibility for him. And the kids and the wife are going to go off to, when I was in the IBEW, they had the girls' vacation fund and the boys' vacation fund, and they had homes family homes that mothers and children could be at. And we called them up, and they said, yeah, we got a place for them. And so we put the kids and the wife in that building, and husband, he was arraigned. And so what happened to him was he stayed in our jail. He was like an Andy Griffin, the drunk guy. He was like that, but he was only drunk that 1-2 nights off that beer. But he stayed in our jail cell until he went to court, like 12 days, right? And then he, had to do all kinds of things, but because he didn't hurt anybody, there was no violence, and I was being responsible for him. And my chief, went to court for him too. And our legal guy went to court for him, and his lawyer, so it was all good. He had no real record. It was one of the hottest days, and there was no air conditioning. And so everyone, he was, he had to be on probation for 3 or 4 years. And the kids and the wife had to be separate from him for about a year. And they moved into they got a nicer apartment. And he had to live in like halfway house kind of place. Then because he wasn't a drug addict or alcoholic or a violent guy, he kind of got into being a social worker, and stayed at that halfway house, and ended up running the halfway house. And that's what should happen in situations like that. But that was, so my boss, he was like, first, when we had to write everything up, and I did all the stuff, and we like almost spent 2 whole days taking care of this guy. And before he got arraigned, my boss said, okay, you two come in here and talk. And he said, now tell us this, and my partner, she was, me, this is what I do. And she is like all business. She had it all written out. She totally Army. He was Army. She's Army. He really respected her. And anyway, so he said, okay, this is fine. And he said, now this is, by the 4th day is when we did a, whatever you call it, where they question everything you do. It's like, I forgot the term for it, but they anyway, they interview you, they do whatever they do. But anyway, he basically, at the end of all of that, he said, you guys did an outstanding job. And not only that, I got 4 commendations for what you did. And you guys are going to get a commendation. But I got 4 because I'm the commanding officer. Right? I said, great, not a problem. So for the next 4 or 5 months, I kept doing stuff like that. And some didn't work out quite as good as that. And one of them, I got shot. I don't know if you can see this, but see all these lines here? So you look at the other one, my other palm. And it's not like that, right? What happened was I went into this room, and there was 2 gangs, 2, Bloods and the Crips or whoever they were. And they were running all the drugs in most of Alphabet City. And they were, the cartels were, running them. Anyway, but they were having this little, they were supposed to be negotiating it out. And they were doing it in one of our, in this apartment. And there was like 4 grandmas, 5 mamas, about 10 kids, because there were all these guys, and they were all their kids and grandmas and everybody from both of these sides. And they were cooking food for everybody. And there were about 8 guys, and they were armed to the teeth. They all have these things called MAC-10s, which are like AR-15s, but really cheap, And so they had those, and they're like little machine pistols. They're not big, long, machine gun. It's a little machine pistol, like an Uzi. It's a poor man's Uzi. Anyway, so they get into a hustle. We get called. We show up. I walk through the door. I don't know. Maybe I need to plug my battery charger in. Anyway, still clicking away. Okay, so anyway, and as the weeks and months went by, and me doing this and all the other stuff I was doing, and I was still grieving the loss of my second wife, my twin flame, the love of my life at that time, because she died of a heart attack in my arms. And the story goes even further. If you go to xratted.blogspot.com, and the story is in there. I think it's Legacy or Legend. And it's a story of the day my wife died, right? And I think it's titled What Love Is, right? What True Love Is. Anyway, it was, I was oh boy, he's so good. He's so well-adjusted. He's doing great, but, not really. So, and I kept pushing the envelope, and my boss would, we'd have to, what do they call that when they ask you every question about what that crazy situation just went down, and there's a term for that. So anyway, they just joined. So we kept doing things like that. I would go in a really crazy situation. She'd stay out there ready to kill everyone. So bottom line, there's a situation with these drug dealers and all these kids and moms and grandmas, and in this little teeny apartment, and there's probably 20 people in there, and we show up, and it's, again, really hot, so they have the door open, and again, my partner waits in the hallway, so they can't really see her. They know she's there, but I just kind of walk in. I got these lime green shorts and flip-flops and a pink shirt and a woman's hat and my little, I remember this one cop, what are you, cross-dresser? I said, no, I'm just the dude. Anyway, so all these people know me. Played basketball with them, and they played basketball with her too. But so everyone knows us. They know our deal. They know how we act. As soon as I walk through the door, everyone kind of gets a little, stops and gets somewhat relaxed, but still a little more. And the two guys who were mano-y-mano were still not screaming at each other anymore, but still mano-y-mano. And I kind of walk between them and said, so what's the problem? Let's work this out. It's not, first off, everyone's packing. Let's get the women and children out of here. And the one guy kind of says, no, they have to stay. I said, no, they don't. You don't want to get my girl upset. I mean, she can come in here and kill all of you and not hit a single grandma or mom or a child, and she will shoot you in your dicks and you will bleed out. Or you won't be able to shoot your gun, and you won't be a man if you survive. So why don't we just work it out? And so they let the kids and the moms and the grandmas out, right? And my partner's scooting them out, and the whatchamacallit, the other cops show up, and that's what they do. They get them out of harm's way. And she's staying there by the door just in case. And so I'm trying to negotiate these guys, and they are not, it's still mano-y-mano, right? And so this one guy, one of the leader guys who's, going nose to nose with the other guy, and I'm in between them, he lifts his gun up like he's going to shoot this other guy. And I know if he shoots the other guy, pretty much everyone else in that room is just going to start shooting everybody else in that room, right? So what do? The guy lifts his gun up. I put my hand over the barrel, right? The gun's here. I put my hand over the barrel. And he shoots. And I push the gun so it's pointing not at anyone, but at a piece of, couch over there and the concrete wall.